Everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and here we are on the fourth part of our adventure as we create this application. Okay, so let's continue where we left off. Now, also, let's see here. Let me take a look at our how express session. That's good. Now, if we go back to our user routes, the thing I feel like we're missing is the session middleware. So let me go pull that from one of my other programs so that way we can put that in. Okay, so that should be over here in the server.js. Okay, let me go look for it. Here we go. Okay, so basically you probably do not have this in your boilerplate, so you're going to want to copy this. Copy. Close that out. We don't need that anymore. We already have sessions imported into our project right here. So we don't need to worry about that part, but we need that included in our middleware for setting up a session in our index.js. So let me just get to our index.js, and again, just to show you, sessions required right there, but we don't use it. It's not in our middleware currently. And I'll explain why we care that sessions is in our middleware, but let me just find my middleware. Here it is. And let me put that before the routes. Okay. So what this does is going to be when someone logs in, it'll allow us to create a session for them, which puts a cookie on their computer, would allow us to store information we may need to reuse anytime they come to the website. That cookie will live there until they close their browser or until we restart the server. In one of those two cases, that cookie will sort of die, and that'll be that. Okay. So basically, you're going to just put this code just the way you have it here. These two things don't need to change. Now here is a string. This is a string that it uses to encode your session, so that way it's encrypted and secure. It can be whatever. What we can do is we can use, let's say, well, I'll use my name right now. Okay, that's the secret key. You probably would want to make this an environment variable through your .env file. If this is going to be something you really want to make sure the security is tight on. So that way other people can't figure out, because if they know your secret, the secret, then they can basically hack into people's cookies and get. If you're storing very private information, then that's an issue. Like, we're not going to be storing anything particularly private here, so nothing to worry about. Okay, so we want to save that variable there. Only reason is because if we go to our user controllers, it's still captain's log. Let me get out of captain's log, back into our tutorial to do app, our user control. Okay, when they log in, okay, we see here we are using session. Okay, so basically it's going to error out if I didn't actually put that session middleware in there, so it knows what to do. It's like, what's rec session? Well, it doesn't know unless the middleware is there to make it happen. Okay, and basically what the login route does is once you go to log in, it's basically, this is the get route. It'll take you to the login page. Okay. And then from the login page, we'll be able to, you fill out the form with your username and password, and then here what it is checking for a user with that username in the database. So it's going to go to user.findOne, see if there's a user with that username, and then it takes the password that we submitted to them, and then bcrypt is going to compare it. Okay, because the password was encrypted when we first built it, so how is it supposed to know if the normal password is the encrypted password? But it's going to run some math to see if they're mathematically equivalent. Are they mathematically, encryptically the same thing? If they are, then the user passes. Because once the password is encrypted, it really doesn't decrypt it. So it's just making a comparison, making sure that the password we're passing in through the form, the request.body password, is the same as the user password that we got from the database. Okay, because again, we pulled the user from the database over here, and that's now user from here on out. So we're comparing that user's password to the password that was passed through the request. Cool. And then what we're doing is we're storing a Boolean variable that tells us that the user is logged in, so that way we can check that the user is logged in going forward. And two, it passes in a variable that stores the username. Okay, why do we want to keep the username offhand where we can grab it? It's because we want to make sure that people only see the to-dos they make. So we need to go back to the to-do model. We have to add one more field. We want to add username, because we want to make sure that every to-do is tagged with the user, and then we got to put a comma there, the user that's going to that created it. Okay, so that's just going to be allow us to say, hey, someone created this to-do with this title and description. It was this user, so we're going to keep track of what user used it. So we're going to want to make sure we put that there. Cool. So far, so good. Okay, now let's take a look at our to-do controller. Let's make sure that we have this all configured right. Again, this should pretty much be good to go outside of the box. Okay, we may just have to fix certain little things. Again, we'll get rid of all this index stuff, because again, it's going to already start with to-do. So everything should just be the root. And there you go. Okay, and basically you have a route so basically we have a route to use when we want to display our to-do. So this would get me all the to-dos. And I want to get rid of that tab title. We're not going to be using that. I think we took that out in the first video. Then we have our routes to make a new to-do. And then we have our route to grab an individual to-do, a route to delete a to-do, and a route to edit a to-do. And then, yeah, here are the two routes for that. Again, let's get rid of this last index here. And get rid of this tab title here. Again, if you wanted to keep the tab title, you could have, but good. Cool. So our routes are for the most part configured. So we have our models. We have our controllers, which tell us which URLs go where. Okay, and then those are defined in our server, our index.js, which is our server. So all the user routes start with /user, all the to-do routes /with to-do. Okay, now what we want to do is create sort of an index page, okay, a main page. So we're going to call that new user or index.ejs. So when you go to the main route, it'll take you to app.get/index.ejs. Save. Okay, and that'll take you to, so let's actually create that. So we have to go to our views folder. Let me close partials for a second. Take the boilerplate. I'm going to duplicate the boilerplate, EJS. That's just basically the basic. And we're going to call that index.ejs. So that way there is one for that to refer to. Right now there really isn't anything there. Okay. So we're just going to put an H1. Welcome to our day. Okay, welcome to our to-do app. Cool. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the login and the sign up and log out fields in this file. So I already have those on their own separate pages with login and new user, but I'm going to just pull that all into here. Okay, so we're going to just grab this. This is to create a new user. So from H1 to form, cut. I didn't really need to cut that. Let's copy it in case we want that page later. Okay, index.ejs. I'm going to put these in its own separate div so that way we can style it later. Again, this is all wrapped in the main tag. So this is all going to be sort of the body of our page. We have a header tag over here, which includes, so if you want to do like a navigation or anything on the top of the page, you want to edit this file, header.js. So that way the header is the same for all your pages. If you use this boilerplate, Same thing with the footer. You just go edit footer.ejs and it'll put it at the bottom of every page with this boilerplate. And then your head tags over here with this partial. So if you want to put in like any links, link tags, whatnot for like CSS libraries and whatnot, and all those partials, all those files that we're including are all in this partials folder. Okay, but right now we're just going to edit sort of the main body of this page. And again, I want one copy of the form, the create a new user form, h1 new user. Okay, and I'm actually going to put the h1 Control X inside the form. We'll see if that looks right in a second, but it'll make it easier for styling later on. Okay, and just to see how this works on, so this basically defines the form, and when the action is taken on this form, it's going to submit a post request to user new and submit the data that this form collected. Okay, and then the data, so here we're saying, hey, this is a username field. It's a text field. And the name of the variable that this creates is username. And the name of the variable this creates is password. So that's how it'll show up in the request body when we submit the request. And that's kind of why you need, you'll see like a code called like URL encoded in the index.js. That's just making sure that when we submit a form, it all works. Okay, and then this is just the input button that submits. Okay, so we have that. Let me also get the login field. Okay, login. So I'll copy that. Copy. Back to our index.js. Okay, and just delete all these comments. Cool. And then, whoa, wait, where did my H1 go? Oh, there it is. Let me redo those deletes. Let me take this H1 out of here and put it below there for login. Okay, let's see how this looks like so far. Okay, well that's for a Apache instance I have running right now, so we'll ignore that at the moment. Localhost, and again it's on 5,000 at the moment. And again, this is the index.js is for our root route, so so that should take us straight there. Localhost 5,000. Seeing a yellow line. Let me see here. Control Shift I. Let's inspect. See here, body, end of the HTML file. Oh, I think I know why. Because here's why. Just so you can see why that's happening. So notice the order of my middleware. So again, here's my middleware, but then these two pieces are also middleware. So the public folder gets checked before this route over here. Now I could do this. And then we'll just say, you know, put my just block off a layer for my root route. Reason is I want that route to be checked before it checks the public folder. Right now it's checking the public folder and grabbing that empty index.html that's hanging out in there. But I want it to look here first. So I need to put this above that public folder call. Like that. And which is why I put the static public thing at the bottom, because I generally want that to be the last place it looks. And if all else fails, that's the last place I want it to look for the particular website. So now it should find the EJS file, not the HTML file. So let's see here, refresh. Is it refreshing? Localhost. Yep, and there we go. So welcome to our to-do app. New user, login. Okay, and just to kind of show you what it did. See, now it's finding this route first and being sent to this file, index.js. Before, it went to check the public folder first and found this index.html and was running that. So that's why that was happening. Now, if I didn't have this route at all, it just wouldn't do either because it wasn't looking for anything. Or actually, Well, actually, if I got rid of both of those things, it wouldn't find anything. Cool. So just again, it's basically literally the way this is working is that a request comes in, it just goes through all your middleware one by one and sees if any of them satisfies the request. So that's why it does matter what order all this stuff kind of happens in. And when something doesn't work the way you expect it, kind of examine what order is it checking. So check the order of your middleware, what's happening first, what's happening later. It'll help explain why something may not be working the way you expect it to work. Okay, so cool. So we have that. Now let's build out this page a little bit, make it look nice, but let's just double check that it works. Let's first make sure that let's see what our, well, actually before we actually try out the form, let's make it look a little bit nicer. So again, all our CSS is going to be feeding in from here in the CSS folder. So you go public CSS. There's a CSS. Why is there an app.js in there? Let's see here. It doesn't matter right now. But let's just double check which one is it looking at. We'll go to our partials, head, scroll down, and right here. It's looking for an ejs.css file, which I did not see in there. So we're going to have to add in there. So we go to CSS. There's supposed to be ejs.css there, but for some reason it is not. So we will just add it. So do I want to start with this one? I think I might. Yeah, let's start with this one. So duplicate. We'll call this ejs.css. Cool. Okay, and then here are all styles. I always just kind of have all this stuff here, just as kind of my boilerplate for a CSS. So basically what's going on here is that this says, well, this is an outline. That's just for tuning purposes, but I also want to just get rid of all margin. So margin 0 between all elements, and I want to get rid of all padding between all elements. Just makes life a little bit easier because I don't have to assume any of that stuff. And that just helps me using font size, so I'll just leave that there. And then these are just my initial variables. So you can just change these variables to whatever you want for whatever fonts and whatnot you're planning to use. But again, having those variables there makes it easier because then later on, instead of having to change every time I use these colors or every time I use these fonts, I can just change them up here and it'll change throughout my CSS. So that's like, so basically as I comment here, these are my universal variables just set up. So I have it. And then down here is where I'll put my stuff. Okay, and you'll see why I put that outline there in a second. But let's take a look at it now, make sure it's connected. So we should see a yellow outline. When I refresh this. Yep, okay, so there we go. So first let's style that H1. Or actually, I want everything at default text align center, just by default. Text align center. Save. Again, just so we can just see that it's all okay. That did not take effect for whatever reason. Text because I spelled the line wrong. That would do it. I feel like Bob Ross. We're painting a happy HTML tag, and the reason for the outline is just makes it easier to kind of see where each tag, where each block, each div is being extended to. Okay, I usually will get rid of this outline thing once I kind of get everything spaced out where I want it. So let's see here. H1. H1. Let's say font size. We'll say 3 EMs, see how that looks. That's fine. Now, the div, so we're going to say main div, because it's the div within the main tag. I want that to be a flex box. Display flex. Okay. I want it to be the width of 80% of the screen. But I want to make sure it's centered, so I'm going to put a margin, make sure it has a little room at the top, so 10 pixels top and bottom, and then automatic left and right, so that way it centers it. I want to have a little padding. Padding always just makes things look a little bit better. So padding, 10 pixels. I wanted to justify the contents within the flexbox. Justify content, space around, just looks better that way. And let's see how it's looking so far. I think it's going to change too much because there's a couple other things I need to do first. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. So basically what it did is that when it makes this a flex box, so here's my div, and see it's only 80% the width of the screen, so we can see sort of what 80% looks like. Because if I turned off that outline, so let's see here, if I turned off that outline, that's what it would look like. But this allows me to get an idea of what does the box that everything's in looks like, so I can get an idea. Is it centering right? Is there something weird about how it's lining up? Just makes life a little easier. Welcome to our to-do app. But that looks a little bit better. That's fine for now. We'll leave it at that. Save. Now let's just double check sort of what's going to happen if we log in. So make sure that way it go well. Let's take care of our to-dos. Okay. Now if we were to log in, user control, we successfully log in, it's going to send us to, if bcrypt password is true, console log out, res redirect, else, okay, if it's the wrong password, then it just sends us back to the index, that's fine. I'm going to send this here. We don't have that route, but we do need a sort of a route for when you're logged in. So we should probably make that back in our index.ejs. Okay. Or actually, that should take us to where we see all our to-dos. So let's go to our because that's the only thing in this application is our to-dos. Again, this route does not exist, so we want to make sure we take that out there before edit errors later. Because right now there's only the root route, and then /todos/user. So there is no /index currently in our list of routes. Again, we would have found an error later and fixed it, but I can see that that's going to be a problem now, so let's fix it. Okay, that's what we want, our index route. So that's just going to be to-dos/. We'll be able to see all our to-dos there. So we're going to want to go back to our user controller, and when you log in, it's going to go to /. Let me just make sure that to-do is the right prefix. Let's go back to our index.ejs. Not EJS, index.js. Make sure that's the right route. Yep, /to-do. So back to our user controller. And it's going to go to /to-do. Good. Otherwise, that's fine. Cool. The thing is that now we need to make sure that /to-do goes somewhere worth going. /to-do, where does that go? That's right here. It's going to go to index.ejs. And it's going to send over the data of all. Right now it's sending all the to-dos. Later we're going to edit that so it only sends the to-dos of a particular username. But let's just render out that page, index.ejs. That's already kind of built here. But I don't want it to do that, so we need to use main. What do I have in main? Got it. Okay, so we'll change the main. So go to user control. And that's going to take us to the to-do here, which we're going to say is going to go take us to main.ejs. So technically, once I log in, it should take us to that page that says, welcome to Captain's Log. So this is just for us to test to make sure that what we got so far is working. Okay, let's create another user. I already created a user called test. So let's try test 2. Test. Test. test 2. Okay. It just takes us back here. Now let me just go over here and just make sure that I created it just fine. Good. This is why console logs are important, so that way you can kind of see what's going on and making sure things are working the way you expect them to. So let's log in, test 2. Test 2. Okay, cannot post /login because there's no such route. So that means we need to fix that over in our index.ejs. The form is what's problem. Because see, it's sending it to login. That's not where we want to send it to. It's going to be in the user, so we're going to send it to user/login. So that's what we need to change it to. So user/login. There we go. Save. Refresh. Well, that's still not going to be the right route. Let's go back to the page before. And try logging in again. Test 2. Test 2. Still, oh, I had to refresh. That's why. So refresh this page. That way the form is different. Good. Okay. Test 2. Test 2. And see, now it's taking us to the to-do login route, and which routed us back to the to-do route. Okay, so that means we logged in successfully. Let's just double check in our terminal. Okay, that looks good. And see, it says correct password. So that means we are logged in. Okay, yay. So we're now able to successfully log in, and we're, you know, if you want now, take some time to just kind of start making your app look pretty, doing some of the styling, some of the editing, build up some, you know, going through these EJS files and build the partials, building your navigation in the your footer in the footer, which is empty, but whatever you put in there will become the footer of the page. Header, which will become the top, like your top navigation, whatnot. And then here, I think this is pretty much all pretty configured for you, so I don't think you really need to touch much here. Unless you wanted to use one of these CSS frameworks, then you can just uncomment out that particular framework, and it'll be automatically used. So what I'm going to do to save us some time, I'm going to uncomment out skeleton, because that's just going to make the forms look a little bit prettier right away. So just to show you what I mean, I save that. Okay, now if I refresh, I'm not sure if this page is gonna see where it looks a little bit different, but if I go back to the main page, see the forms already look a lot nicer. I mean, there's work to be done. So you see username and password look a little small, but things are already starting to look a little bit prettier. Let me just take off the outline. Cool. So that's one of the benefits of just being able to just put on one of those CSS frameworks. They'll definitely at least make the forms initially a little bit prettier, and then you can just style from there. So I'm gonna kind of wrap it up here. Again, go style these up some more. We'll make some more work on this as we go, as we have some time, and eventually we'll have a full-on application.